that highlighted a few pieces, talk about them a little bit more in expanded context, and then kind of open it up to you. And if you have any questions about any particular piece that is of interest, that why I chose that, then then I'll expound on that, or any other questions. So I think what I'd like to do, and then if there isn't anything, then I'll just kind of continue forward and fill out the kind of time period so that it kind of satisfies in a way that doesn't overtax you and doesn't shortchange you. So I'll just start off. I think one of the things I'd like to start off with, just I don't have any theme particularly. It's just basically certain works that attract me and I have a kind of attachment to or respond to in a certain way. And I had to leave out a lot. There was a certain kind of, wall space and floor space that were available. Obviously, it's a nice space, a large space, but so I was limited, and I wanted to kind of find a few things that maybe hadn't been seen for a while, although there are some things that are reoccurring. In fact, there's one booklet from a previous exhibition on kind of oriented on a theme of more architectural kind of work. And so there are a few pieces in there actually that are duplicated here, but they were pieces that particularly I was attached to and I would like to see again myself, and so everybody else will have to see them again too. Okay, so I want to start with Pauline Simon, who was, and I think is a kind of under-recognized Chicago artist, and she's kind of lost in the shuffle in a way, although a few years back, Gladys Nielsen curated a show that really highlighted a lot of her work. And one of the things about Pauline Simon, I think, that is unique and has a particular attraction for me is the fact that the naive or the self-taught, whatever kind of terminology you want to attach to the designation that we're presented with today, is they usually have one kind of vision, one kind of presentation to their vision, and they kind of stick with that kind of context there. Pauline Simon went through at least three periods that I can kind of think of offhand. She has this sort of a period, a more kind of vigorous, kind of strange coloration, almost maybe a fauve kind of approach to her work. And so you have the kind of skin tone aspect. You've got a kind of a pinkish, they're out on the beach. There's a kind of pinkish formulation there. They're all Caucasians. But then they have some kind of strange blotching on the skin as well, which kind of has, this kind of green kind of factor that comes into the skin, or some kind of a yellowish kind of aspect that could either be skin cream, protective skin cream that didn't quite blend in some way. But I kind of really am attracted to that kind of quality of attaching brushwork, the factor of bringing in this other kind of formulation, this arm here. It kind of relates to the arm I have right now. It kind of feels like it's, whoa, there's something happening there. Very red forearm, and then there's really actually no indication of a bicep, whatever, and it's just kind of a blank happening here. And so, and then you have this green texture. You have the bathing suit, the striped bathing suit, and then you have this differential in terms of the feet, which I kind of do myself a lot. I like to have, not necessarily a matching foot situation, and so you have this very little foot here, and then you have this giant foot that almost looks like a paintbrush. It has a form of a paintbrush. No differentiation of toes, and then this one has a nice little reddish toe quality. It kind of also reminds me of when I was a kid, there was a wedding reception that I went to with my parents to the Edgewater Beach Hotel, And there was a man there that had, he was maybe in his mid-30s, somewhere around there. And so he was, you know, 6'1", something like that, kind of moderately tall person. And he had the one, you know, everything was perfectly normal about him. And his one arm was very much curtailed, and it had, the formation was kind of stopped growing at approximately 7 or 8. So he had this very small arm and little hand, and it was, I think it was before, you know, obviously before the thalidomide situation, where you did have a lot of that mixed appendage situation, but this was some kind of injury or something that happened that kind of stunted the growth of that arm. And so I always kind of remember that and kind of thought about the asymmetricality that is present in all of us, but was in some individuals through some catastrophe or some other birth defect has presented in a more obvious way. All right, so I think we'll kind of move along a little bit. One quick stop here, actually, while we're right here. Maybe there are two things I want to talk about here. Is that this one is, I think, I want to keep saying Roger Bannister in terms of the Olympics and the breaking the 4-minute mile. But this is, but it is, I think it is Bannister, and it's Robert Bannister. And this person here was somebody that was brought to my attention. He's from Champaign, Illinois, or was. I'm not sure if he's still living. But Glenn Davies, who was and still is, he's living in Champaign, and an artist, a kind of banner sideshow artist, and has been known for his approach to art in a more carnival circus format. I don't think he discovered him, but he became aware of him. I think he may have been connected with teaching him at these sessions that he went to, or just saw his work, and he curated, I'm not saying that right, it doesn't sound right, but anyway, he curated a show in Champaign highlighting him. But he also, I first became aware of this artist, the Arts Club had a show of works of artists that, because of the Dubuffet lecture, they were presenting a show of art that was outside or whatever. And Glenn had owned one of his pieces, and that was in the show. It was in the catalog. They have a catalog as well, if you want to kind of check that at your leisure. At the Arts Club, they may have some more copies left over. So at any rate, he deals again with another kind of strange physiognomy. He has this smiling eye here that is titled Smiling Eye, I believe. And then you have this, and you have in his work some other more distorted characterizations. Here it's kind of a more of a milder quality of physical aspect that maybe just represented here in this one eyeball kind of context there, and a very kind of stiff aspect of their body structure, and in some ways they're in an elevated situation versus laying down, I believe, but it seems like they are having trouble kind of standing up, just in terms of that kind of position and this kind of weird kind of stature of this person. Okay, we'll kind of jump here to this and then we'll move onward. But one of the things with this person, P.M. Wentworth, I believe, yeah. This is kind of unique to his work. Generally his work is a larger kind of landscape formation or a cityscape, and it describes a alternate universe, in effect. I believe he is a very religious person and has a kind of notion of a beyond our existence now. And so he's kind of representing another kind of world for us. And a lot of times, as noted on the text accompanying the piece there, he's had a label of imagination on the back of it, just to kind of clarify that this is not, he's not representing a reality-based world, and it's you know, the alternative kind of worlds. But this one here is unique in a sense, and it may be a little bit of a comment and a kind of representation of that idea, where he's giving you an actual photograph, and then this is a replication, a duplicate of this photograph. So he's showing you the reality, and then he's showing you a kind of modified and altered, another kind of space in that same area there. That, you know, the aspect of coexisting universes, that we're in one universe, there's another one in this actual same space that we're occupying. So it's that kind of notion here that is presented in this situation. And so this one, to my knowledge, is the first that I've ever seen in this kind of way, where he's using a kind of altered photographic image. The other pieces are kind of crayon, pencil, and they're larger formatted, and they do have you know, figuration within them, as well as landscape, landforms, and certain kind of structural situations as well. I know I was saying I was going to do a few pieces, and right now the way I'm kind of proceeding is piece to piece, but then we'll kind of move around a little bit more after I get past George Washington, because it's another piece that I kind of chose because it represents an artist that is very familiar and has had a lot of high profile exposure, certainly. But I just have to, in terms of this George Washington representation, he's got this green suit on, which is kind of maybe circa 1950s, and then, you know, that kind of use of text in a strategic manner along the cuff line there, where he's giving his name and address, and then the talk about George Washington as representing truth, and, you know, chopping down the cherry tree and all that sort of thing. So that it's basically that. I really like that aspect. And then my work too, a lot of my work has incorporated this kind of cutout aspect, where you kind of pull, it's in between the two-dimensional and the three-dimensional. It puts a kind of object out there free of the constraints of a rectangle or circle or some kind of barrier context. It's its own identity there, its own shape, form, and it kind of floats on the wall. And I think one of the things with not this particular piece, but with Finster's work, a lot of times he'll have these angels or these kind of forms that will be regularly thought of like flying or not connected up to the floor surface or some kind of grounding component there. So, so I think that is kind of appropriate in terms of this cutout context here. I think one of the things about Simon Sparrow here, we're looking at this. A lot of his work does, and it's kind of connected up a little bit to Pauline Simon, who I mentioned had the kind of multiple kind of work outcomes, you know, the different strategies with her work. She had the kind of African Cubist style, geometric style. She had the pointillist style, and she had that style there. With Simon, which is kind of the first name and the last name thing, Pauline Simon. Simon has a sparrow. I was kind of looking him up online and looking for images of Simon Sparrow, and I got a lot of Audubon pictures that came up. But, and I wanted to check back to, just to see that his other images were kind of a craypan or an oil-based crayon that he uses and smudges, and he has a little bit more of a figurative kind of quality to his, just the kind of drawing in this manner here. So that's another kind of approach to this collage, highly saturated, glitter, kind of textural component here. You know, very much involved with the tactile quality, the textural quality, you know, this amalgam of different kind of found objects, presenting it in this unique kind of presentation. And it's an artist too that does have the frame on it, and it kind of extends out. It is part of the painting piece that accompanies it, and it's more than just a kind of subtle kind of aspect that kind of encloses the work. So I think maybe in terms of that, you know, the idea of the frames, and then I think, wait, I want to just zero in here a little bit, just in terms of these two pieces here. They're pieces that were pulled out of an environmental space. So they had it's kind of analogous to some of the ethnic and the indigenous, or, you know, some of the works that we have at the Field Museum, where they are presented in a more museum-based high art context, and they don't have the usual functionality or the usual aspect of presentation that they would, ritual, etc., that they would coming from the culture or the artist that we see. So, and this would be an example of that, but just kind of like some of those objects that we are brought to see from out of the cultural context, these two kind of function in themselves. They have so much power, and by taking them out in a way, you kind of isolate them up, highlight them in a way that they wouldn't be in this kind of environmental, you know, large conglomeration mix that is presented in these environmental art pieces. And I kind of chose these just, again, for me, I had never seen these before, and so I really liked their kind of approach to the three-dimension there, and I was unsure of, you know, how they were using, you know, actual shoes, and I did some marionettes that kind of incorporated that aspect, where there's a lot of the artist's hand in there, and then there's a lot of the work of, you know, the shoe manufacturer, the pants manufacturer, etc. So he had, and the carriage manufacturer. So he's using aspects that were kind of given to him, set up in the context of the normal aspect of wearing or using, and then he had the basic, the larger kind of context came out of his own invention and approach to the figure. And the other aspect too was that it kind of joined up with the Statue of Liberty with the torch, and this has kind of the own torch aspect here. And I also like the fact of just, I was asked if I should, if you wanted to plug this in some way and light this up. But I kind of like the idea of this person kind of going around looking for a socket somewhere. And that, the other aspect, I'm kind of focusing on feet. I was with the Pauline Simon focusing on feet here. And this, in the two figures, the one has the gym shoes, which I mentioned, and then this one has the 2 feet, and the 2 feet are, again, also different, and the aspect of the way the toes are spread out, and the ankle bones on both of those are kind of extraordinary. These kind of almost like a bee sting or something kind of puffing out in the extra, and then an extra kind of projection away from the skin. And the back foot is almost, it almost looks like a camel's head with large eyes. They're kind of looking to check the back there. And it's also the kind of the use of the hair treatment there, a little bit of the Mr. Imagination brush with that one, and then this kind of use of the kind of, not sure exactly what's being used there to kind of replicate the kind of hair follicle context of the African American situation there. And one quick mention, as we're in the kind of sculptural zone, of the Mr. Imagination, who recently passed not too many months ago there, unfortunately. And in terms of that shark, or that right above you hanging from the ceiling, it was another kind of unique presentation there that is unfamiliar. Mr. Imagination, of course, has the iconic sandstone sculptures, the bottle cap sculptures, etc., and and the environmental presentations as well. So this kind of tin metal sculptural piece is, again, another unique presentation that I'm not familiar with, another piece that is a similar kind of approach. Okay, let's maybe zip over to the other wall here, and just get in this corner here where Stephen Anderson, an artist I believe too has been well represented in recent years, and in fact he even appeared on that Channel 11 show, something about Chicago. What is it? Wild Chicago, right. And it showed him in his home space, and a very unique guy in terms of, and what was kind of surprising reading his bio, that he was for a couple of years in the Navy, and I just don't see this individual as kind of eccentric guy in the Navy somehow, where it's kind of very, any military situation, it's a very rigid, unique kind of possibilities there for individuation, in my opinion. But he sews and designs his own clothes, and his approach to the painting process is his strong interest in the kind of the movies, the popular kind of imagery of the 40s and 50s, and as he expands his approach to strange environments, strange combinations of dinosaurs and mermaids, etc. He has a kind of very unique imagination, and I kind of really connect up to that. And his little commentary there in terms of this person here, the aspect of superhero, the kind of librarian, and the kind of mini librarian there, all set up and looking very powerful among the pencils and pens. Kind of reminds me of seeing the sharpener down here, of coming up Wednesday, the man who wrote the book How to Sharpen a Pencil. I don't know if you've heard about him, but he has a book out on the art of sharpening a pencil, and he has a website that you can go to that is, if you send him a pencil, he'll sharpen it for you and send it back for a certain fee. He'll be speaking at Gimby's, the cartoon capital there, Wednesday, I believe. So you might want to check that out as a presentation by someone. One other thing about Mr. Stephen Anderson here, is the fact of his technique, the kind of texture, application of paint, using the Q-tips to apply paint, the kind of meticulous kind of aspect, which is like the artist, I can't quite, he's a Greek person, Drosis Skylus. Yeah, Skylus, Drosis, something of that name.
Drosis P. Skylus.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Mike. But he also has this very, not using Q-tips, but he works very laboriously at his paintings. They're very meticulous. He does which there's not a representation of his work here. There was, I think the Intuit does have a piece that's a window with icicles hanging down, if I'm not mistaken. If they don't own it, it's been in several shows. So for that reason, I didn't bring that. I don't know if it was available to me anyway to choose. But at any rate, that artist is somehow, I think, connected up to this artist here in the same kind of precise, meticulous way that he achieves a finished product. And I'll simply stop here. I think, is it Robert again? Stefan, I believe? Charles, right. And one quick stop off here at Van Brecken. I chose this piece here, kind of relates up to some of the other geometric spiral graph kind of pieces that are on the other wall, kind of in proximity to this area here, just in terms of the uniqueness. Again, another artist that has various different approaches. So as I go through this, I'm seeing that I picked a number of artists that are unique to that idea of the one vision, one presentation. There are a number of the artists in this exhibition that has different outcomes to their visions, different styles, if you will. And so this is kind of unique. I've never seen his work. Usually is these kind of strange, swirly, wild kind of, I know I'm trying to explain auditorially his visual presentation, but he also has portraits of his wife, and so there's a number of kind of areas that he explores that I'm not as fond of, and he's not one of my favorite in terms of this genre. But I do like this geometric expression, and maybe there are some others like that. I'm sure there are, because he was, or is, I'm not sure if he's still alive, very prolific in his outcomes. And so I'm sure there are some more like that, but I really like this piece here. In terms of Charles Stefan, he is, to me, a very unique, and I think a recent, fairly recent, on the, kind of horizon of, I was just aware of his work through, I think the Bowman, Russell Bowman Gallery. They had a show not too long ago, and I think that was the first time I had seen his work. But he has these kind of large format, different sizes, large scale, and a kind of very strange approach to the figure, which it's not mentioned here, but I believe I did read somewhere, and it may have been in Intuit's publication. Somebody had an article on his connection to comic books, that he had some comics collected in the kind of more gag-like situations, like the Snuffy Smith, not so much some of the superhero or some other kind of context like that. But I can see that, for me anyway, if it isn't, if that's just my imagination, but I believe there is some connection there versus his own personal experiences in mental hospitals, etc., and personal life, and just his approach to where he's looking at forms on the sidewalk or on the ground and picking up shapes, that sort of thing, to get some of these weird distorted formations that he's also utilizing some of the kind of comic, iconographic stylization of some of these more exaggerated gag-like figures that appear, just in terms of the kind of bug eyes and the weird kind of otherworldly outer space kind of feeling, these kind of alien creatures in our world here. I also like the kind of brown paper idea too. Kind of, you know, that really works well. I know Jim Nutt is a great fan of brown paper, and I think a lot of other artists, he's kind of really pushed that to the ultimate, but a lot of other artists really like that as well, and so does Charles Stefan. Ulysses Davis here, I really like this piece. It's a nice little piece. He's a wood carver, he's a barber, and a number of, it's kind of interesting to me that there's been a number of barbers that have become, you know, these artists, aside from their profession of barbering, kind of sculpting the hair, in effect, kind of the African, what I'm thinking about is some of the African signs, that the barbershop signs that are really unique, and I think Intuit had a show of barbershop signs many years ago before this location, very fine show, and so there may be some kind of weird analogy there, but at any rate, Ulysses Davis here has this unique little dragon, lizard formation here on this really interesting pedestal, which might relate a little bit to Lincoln logs or tramp art, and it's a kind of really unusual platform that the little lizard guy is on. And one of the aspects of Ulysses Davis, he did a series of carvings on the US presidents, which is a kind of reverse. I was talking to Lori just last night about a kind of reverse universe, and he didn't get to Obama, but in all of the president's presentations, they look like President Washington, Abraham Lincoln, etc., Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but they all have the African-American physiognomy to them, which is really great. And we were thinking that if he continued on, he's no longer alive, but if he had been able to continue onward, that Obama would have been a more Caucasianized presentation. All right, so I think I'll end it at this point here and try to open it up for any possible questions that you might have. As I said, any question about why I chose a particular piece or any other kind of question you might want to. Yeah. Okay.
Any good stories about you knowing any of these different artists?
Do I have any stories about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there are a few artists. I mean, I know Pauline Simon, who took lessons at the Hyde Park Art Center, and so I met her through Don Baum, who kind of pushed her art as he pushed so many other artists. And she was a very charming woman, very petite, small bone. I think, I'm not sure if the bio mentions it, but she came to art late in life after raising a family, and her husband was a dentist, and she took some classes at the Hyde Park Art Center, and and Don Baum, you know, saw, whoa, this person's really got it, and he really kind of encouraged her work, and so I have fond memories of her. I believe, if I'm not remembering this, that one of the things about her, she was this very petite, proper woman with white hair, and she smoked cigarettes, right?
That I don't remember.
Okay, I thought I remember seeing her with cigarettes, which seemed like really kind of weird. So, and Stephen Anderson I've met and know him, and so, but I thought I'll stop it at that point there. Is there any And I don't think I've encountered personally. Let me see if there's anyone else that I've. Oh, Fenster. One year I had like a guest appearance in North Carolina, and I had a friend down there who was very much. He was teaching there, and he knew Howard Fenster. He in fact gave him his old Cadillac. It was an old 50s white Cadillac that he was no longer really functioning well. And so Georgia is, I think that's where Howard Fenster is. It was just kind of below North Carolina or in close proximity to it. And he, early on in Fenster's evolving career, our friend was very much involved with him, and so he did give him this Cadillac, and the Cadillac does appear in his garden, all, you know, with heads on it, et cetera, et cetera. And so when I was teaching there for the, I think it was a month or something like that, and doing some work as well, and having an exhibition, he took me down, and along with Lori, my wife, and we met him, and he had his son doing some of the work there, a little production line. And one of the things I liked, he used the same kind of a saw that I did, the kind of little hand saw there, and so I kind of liked that kind of connection, and I got a little house made out of old. I think it was old pill box. It was like a cardboard box. It wasn't pills, but it was something from a drugstore that had replication to it. And he used that as kind of building box to do a skyscraper. So yeah, so that's it. Now any, oh yeah.
Although